off your post.
I went to check my clock out time. My replacement is already here. She's sitting right there.
That's a violation of policy. You walked off your post. You're fired.
You do not get to yell at me. Do not yell at me.
I'm not going to argue with you. You walked off your post. You're fired. That's it. You're done here. No, you cannot.
So imagine this. You've been on your feet for 12 hours straight, guarding a lobby, dealing with deliveries, badge checks, people coming in late, people arguing about parking, all of it. Your replacement finally shows up, sits at the desk, and you take literally a minute to walk into the back and check what time you're supposed to clock out. And when you come back, some random guy you've never met looks you in the face and says, "You walked off your post. You're fired." That's exactly what happened to Marcus. In this video, we're talking about Marcus Hall, a black independent contractor working security and operations in a big office building. He doesn't work for the building. He works at the building through a contracting agency. Big difference. By the time this starts, it's late at night. Marcus is exhausted. His replacement, Dana, is already sitting at the desk. All he does is step away to check his official clock-out time. Enter Tyler. Tyler's a white gig worker brought in for extra help that night. No title, no supervisor badge, nothing. But the second he sees that post empty for a moment, he decides this is his chance to play boss. The situation starts with Marcus already pushed to his limit, but still calm. "You do not get to yell at me. Do not yell at me." And that's when Tyler hits him with, "You're fired," like he owns the place. In the next part, I'll walk you through that confrontation step by step and show you exactly how this fake boss moment fell apart. All right, let's break down how this even started. Marcus is at the tail end of his 12-hour shift. It's late, the lobby is quiet, and he's just trying to wrap things up correctly. He's been watching that front desk all day, people coming in without badges, delivery drivers asking where to go, tenants complaining about doors being locked, all the normal stuff. Finally, his replacement, Dana, shows up. She signs in, puts her bag down, and Marcus walks her through the basics. Which doors are locked, which packages came in late, who called about what. Normal handoff. And then he does the most reasonable thing you can do at the end of a long shift. He steps away from the desk to check his actual clock-out time. He goes into the back room where the schedule and the timekeeping system are. He's back there for maybe a minute. Dana is literally at the desk. The post is covered. When Marcus comes back out, he doesn't even get a chance to sit down or say, "I am out," before Tyler walks straight up to him like he's been waiting for this moment. Tyler's got that tone already loaded, the one that sounds like a manager, but with none of the actual power behind it. "Hey," he snaps, pointing toward the desk. "You walked off your post." Marcus just looks at him. He's tired, not in the mood for games. "I went to check my clock-out time," Marcus says. Calm, direct. "My replacement is already here." Tyler doesn't care. He doesn't ask questions. He doesn't check with anyone. He goes straight for the fake power play. "That's a violation of policy," he says. "You walked off your post. You're fired." And that's where Marcus shuts it down. "You do not get to yell at me," Marcus says, voice still low. "Do not yell at me." Tyler raises his voice even more, like volume equals authority. "I'm not going to argue with you," Tyler says. "You walked off your post. You're fired. That's it." Marcus doesn't move. He doesn't back away. He just looks at him like, "You must be out of your mind." "You cannot fire me," Marcus replies. "No, you cannot. You're not my supervisor." Tyler doesn't blink. "Yes, I can." And right here is where you see the entitlement. He's not calm, he's not professional. He's just committed to being right, even though he has no idea how any of this works. Marcus finally spells it out for him. "I went in there to see what time I should leave," he says, pointing back toward the hallway. "I left my post to check my clock-out time. My replacement is already here? She's sitting right there." Dana is at the desk, watching this happen. She looks uncomfortable, because she knows Marcus didn't abandon anything. She saw him hand off the post and walk back for his schedule. Tyler ignores her completely. I don't care, he says. You can't walk off your post. You're done here. And this is where Marcus draws the line. Listen, he says, firmer now. You are not my supervisor. I don't care who you think you are. Do not talk to me like that. You can hear the shift in his tone. It's not yelling, but it's not casual anymore. This is a man who's tired, disrespected, and done playing nice with someone pretending to be in charge. I'm going to go talk to somebody actually in charge, Marcus says, because you obviously don't know what you're doing. You have no authority over me. Tyler hates that. He keeps repeating the same line. You walked off your post. You're fired. You're fired. At this point, one or two people in the lobby start paying attention. They hear, you're fired, and see this guy in plain clothes going off on the uniformed contractor who's just trying to leave for the night. A couple of them quietly pull out their phones and start recording. Marcus notices the phones and he knows exactly what time it is. He angles himself slightly so his face and Tyler's voice are clear in the shot. He looks right at Tyler and says, one more time. You do not get to yell at me. You're not my supervisor. I'm going to talk to the people who are in charge. And then he does the smartest thing you can do in that moment. He stops arguing. He doesn't curse him out. He doesn't swing on him. He doesn't storm out. He simply turns away from Tyler and walks toward the office, where the real management is. And Tyler, he's still standing there talking to nobody, insisting, you're fired, while the people who actually matter are starting to get the full story, and the cameras are quietly catching all of it. In the next part, we're going to get into what happened after Marcus left that lobby, how those videos hit social media, and why the internet instantly clocked this guy as a male Karen trying to play boss. After the lobby incident, Marcus leaves, finishes his shift properly, and goes home. He's tired and annoyed, but he keeps it professional. No scene, no yelling, just out. When he finally checks his phone, he realizes the situation has already left the building. Those bystanders who pulled out their phones, their videos are already online. The videos don't hit crazy global numbers, but they get enough attention that people in the city see it, coworkers see it, and, most importantly, people connected to the building and the companies involved start getting sent links. By the time Marcus goes to work the next day, the situation isn't just a lobby argument anymore. Next, we'll get into what happens when he walks back in, what management tells him, and how the fake "you're fired" turns into very real consequences for the wrong guy. Next day, Marcus goes back to work like normal. He shows up on time, walks through the same lobby, same doors, same desk. The only difference now, he knows there are videos out there. He just doesn't know who's seen them yet. He signs in, and before he can even fully settle, the building operations manager, Miss Ruiz, asks to speak with him. They step into a small office off the lobby. Marcus, she starts, I saw the incident from last night. Marcus nods. Okay, I sent a report to my agency. I read it, she says, and I've also seen the videos. That's the key part, videos, plural. Miss Ruiz doesn't drag it out. Let me be clear, she says. Tyler has no authority over you. He is not your supervisor. He is not anyone's supervisor. He's a temporary gig worker, brought in for one specific function. She explains they forwarded the videos and a summary of what happened to the vendor that hired Tyler. The vendor, not wanting a public problem attached to their name, pulled his assignment from the building. In simple terms, she says, he won't be back here. Not in that role, not at this site. Marcus asks the only question that matters for him. And my contract? You're fine, she answers. You followed procedure. Your replacement was already on post. Next time, just let the desk know you're stepping back to check the clock out time. But you did not abandon your post. You did not deserve to be yelled at. That's it. No lecture, no threat. No, we're going to have to let you go too. Just confirmation. Tyler overstepped and it cost him. The guy who thought he was the boss ended up being the only one actually removed. After that meeting with Miss Ruiz, things get very simple for Marcus. He keeps coming in, doing his job, same uniform, same desk, same routine. The only real change is how people act around him now. A couple coworkers pull him aside on different days. "I saw that video, man. You handled that better than I would have." "Glad you didn't let him talk to you crazy." Dana, his replacement from that night, quietly tells him, "I told him exactly what happened. I said I was already on post when you went to check your time. You didn't do anything wrong." The building also tightens things up. There's a short memo that goes out to staff and contractors. Gig workers and temporary staff are not allowed to give orders outside their assignment. Everyone is expected to speak to each other with basic respect. Nothing dramatic, just clear rules on paper that match what should have already been happening in reality. For Marcus, the main relief is this: he didn't lose his income over someone else's ego. He didn't get punished for defending himself. Management backed the facts, not the volume. He clocks out at the end of another long shift, steps away from the desk, and this time nobody chases him down yelling, "You're fired." He just taps his badge, checks his time, and walks out knowing one thing: the guy who tried to humiliate him in public is gone. He's still here. So let's zoom out for a second. What actually happened here? A black independent contractor did his job for 12 hours. His replacement arrived. The post was covered. He stepped away for a minute to check when he could officially go home. A white gig worker with zero authority decided that made him the boss and tried to fire him on the spot. Bystanders filmed it, posted it, and the internet saw exactly who was out of line. The person who said, "You're fired," is the only one who actually lost the job. That's not an accident. That's how entitlement looks. Why did Tyler feel so confident talking to Marcus like that? Why did he think he could control another man's livelihood when he didn't even sign his checks? This is what you see over and over. People with a tiny bit of proximity to power, acting like they own other people. And when race is in the mix, it gets even uglier. Marcus wasn't treated like a professional. He was treated like someone you can yell at and threaten just because you feel superior. The difference this time was proof. Marcus stayed calm. Bystanders recorded. Social media pushed the truth straight to the people in charge. And when the dust settled, the system actually backed the person who was right, not the one who was loud. So yeah, know your rights, know who actually supervises you, and don't let random people play boss with your life. If you want more real stories like this, racism, entitlement, and accountability actually landing, make sure you subscribe, hit the notifications, and stick around. These stories are happening every day. The least we can do is not look away.
Show me your driver's license.
For what? You didn't pull me over. We're just sitting here. What do you need my ID for?
Because you want to run your mouth to me.
We were buying food. Suspicious for buying groceries?
You're acting suspicious.
Suspicious how? What crime are you saying happened?
All right, let me paint this picture for you because it starts like one of those moments you never expect to turn into anything. Miguel and Tiana had just finished a regular grocery run after work. Nothing stressful, nothing chaotic. They're loading bags into the back seat, joking around about who forgot the eggs this time. Just a normal couple doing normal things. But then Miguel notices something that doesn't match the mood at all. A marked police SUV is parked a few spaces away, engine off, lights off. But the officer inside? He's not looking at the store entrance, not watching traffic, not talking on the radio. He's staring at their license plate. Not for a second either. For a long, uncomfortable moment. Writing something on his MDT, looking up, looking back down, and still saying nothing. Miguel tries to brush it off. Tiana even laughs and says, "Maybe he's bored." But once they get in the car and shut the doors, the weirdness follows them. Miguel starts the engine, checks his mirrors, goes to shift into reverse. That's when the officer suddenly swings his patrol SUV across the aisle and parks directly behind them, blocking the exit. He gets out immediately, walks fast toward the driver's side window, And without greeting, without explanation, without even saying why he's there, he demands, "Show me your driver's license." No lights, no stop, no explanation. Just an order that comes out of nowhere. And that's where the story really begins. So the officer walks up on Miguel's window like, this is already a done deal. No, good evening, no, here's why I'm talking to you. Just that hard, flat tone. Show me your driver's license. Miguel looks at him, confused. For what? Miguel asks. You didn't pull me over. What do you need my ID for? The officer's face tightens. You can tell he wasn't expecting pushback. He leans a little closer to the window. Because you want to run your mouth to me. Let that sink in. Not because I saw you do something. Not because we got a call about this. Just, you annoyed me. Inside the car, Tiana is already reaching for her phone. She doesn't yell, she doesn't jump in yet. She just unlocks it and opens the camera. Because she knows exactly how fast this kind of thing can flip. Miguel points to the back seat where the grocery bags are piled. We were just shopping, he says. You were staring at my license plate. Why? You're acting suspicious, the officer fires back. Suspicious. The universal word that means everything and nothing at the same time. Miguel actually laughs, but it's that nervous, angry kind of laugh. Suspicious? For buying groceries? Look at the bags in the back. What crime are you claiming happened? And here's the important part. The officer still hasn't named a single law, a single call, a single reason. He's in full uniform, with a patrol SUV blocking them in, demanding ID, but he can't explain what this even is. Traffic stop? Investigation? Random power trip? Tiana finally speaks up. Are we being detained or something? She asks. What's going on? The officer ignores her and turns his attention back to Miguel. License, he repeats. Now. Miguel shakes his head. He keeps his hands on the steering wheel where everyone can see them. Not until you tell me why, he says. What's your name, officer? And that touches a nerve. I'm not getting a supervisor, the officer snaps like he's answering a question nobody asked yet. That right there tells you a lot. Nobody mentions supervisors, but he already knows he doesn't want one. Tiana answers that for him. You're off duty, she says. If you're off duty, why are you stopping people? Because at some point in the back and forth, he did drop that line. I'm off duty, but I'm still a cop. He wanted the authority without the rules. He leans further into the driver's window, close enough that his words hit them with spit. The angle on the phone catches part of his shoulder patch and the side of his face. Because I don't know what you guys are doing, he says. And there it is, not a crime, not a report, just you guys. Miguel stays calm, but you can hear the frustration in his voice now. We're buying food, he says. We walked out of a store with a receipt and bags. You blocked us in with your car, and you still can't say what we did. If this is a legal stop, say what it is. If it's not, we're leaving. The officer's tone gets sharper. You try to leave, you're going to have a problem, he warns. Tiana's voice is quieter, but it cuts through everything. He's not even telling us what this is, she says to the camera. He just jumped out at us. Miguel looks straight at the officer. Call a supervisor, he says. Right now. The officer shakes his head. I told you I'm not getting a supervisor. So instead of doing the one thing that could clear this up, he does something else. He goes back to his patrol SUV, grabs his radio, and calls in backup like they're the threat. From inside the car, you can hear bits of it through Tiana's recording. Phrases like suspicious vehicle and non-compliant and refusing to identify. Notice what's missing. Any actual crime. Tiana turns the camera toward herself for a second. We tried to stay calm, she says quietly. He just keeps pushing. Minutes later, you hear sirens in the distance. A second patrol car is on the way. And this is where the whole thing shifts. Because that next officer, he's the one who's about to decide if this stays an ego trip or gets shut down by the actual law. By the time the second patrol car rolls into the lot, the whole energy has shifted. You've got Miguel and Tiana sitting in a parked car with grocery bags in the back. You've got one uniformed officer who's already escalated this way past normal. And now you've got a new unit pulling up, lights on, trying to figure out what exactly he's walking into. This is Officer Luis Herrera. He steps out of his car, calm, hands visible, scanning everything. He sees the setup right away. One patrol SUV blocking a parked vehicle, no cars crashed, no alarms going off, no one yelling except the first officer who looks way more worked up than the couple. He walks over to Crowley first. They speak a few feet away from the car. You can't hear everything on Tiana's recording, but you catch pieces. Suspicious vehicle. Refuse to identify. Running his mouth, you don't hear words like theft, assault, hit and run. Anything you'd expect in a real situation. Just attitude and vibes. Herrera listens, nods, but his face doesn't match the story. You can tell he's already skeptical. Then he comes to the driver's window, where Tiana is still recording. "All right, what's going on, guys?" he asks, calm voice. Miguel explains it straight. "We were just shopping," he says. "We came out, got in the car. He was staring at our plate, then he blocks us in, demands my ID, but he can't say what we did. No lights, no traffic stop. We asked for a supervisor, he refused." Tiana adds, "He leaned into the car. He's in my face, spitting while he's talking, getting mad because we're asking questions. He couldn't even tell us what we did. He just jumped out at us." Herrera looks at the grocery bags in the back. He looks at Miguel's hands on the wheel. Then he looks over at Crowley, standing off to the side, arms crossed. You can almost see the decision forming in his head. He turns back to Miguel. "Okay," Herrera says, keeping his tone professional. "Let me be clear with you. As far as I know, we don't have any reasonable suspicion of a crime. There's no reason for a traffic stop. You're not required to identify yourself. That's it. That's the line that shuts the whole thing down." He just quietly confirms on camera what everyone watching already knows. This isn't about a crime. This is about pride. The camera catches Miguel exhaling, that kind of long breath you let out when you realize you were more scared than you wanted to admit. "Thank you," he says, because he made it sound like I had no choice. Tiana keeps the camera on Herrera. "We asked for a supervisor," she says. "He said he wasn't calling one. Is that normal?" Herrera hesitates for half a second. You can tell he's trying not to throw another cop under the bus in public, but he still keeps it honest. "You always have the right to request one," he says carefully. "And if a stop is happening, there should be a clear reason for it." Translation: no. This is not how it's supposed to go. He looks back at Crowley. "Do you need anything else from them?" he asks. Crowley doesn't answer. He just shakes his head, frustrated. Herrera turns back to the couple. "You're good to go," he says. "Sorry about this." And that's it. No ticket, no warning, no, "I'll let you off this time." Just, "You're good to go," which is basically another way of saying, "You shouldn't have been stopped in the first place." They pull out slowly, still recording, and drive home. Later that night, they sit at their kitchen table, replaying the video. You can hear the officer's words clearly. "You're acting suspicious. I'm not getting a supervisor. As far as I know, we don't have any reasonable suspicion of a crime. You're not required to identify yourself." Tiana looks at Miguel. "People need to see this," she says. So she posts it. Clips of the confrontation, the spit, the refusal of a supervisor, and that final line from Herrera basically confirming it was all nonsense. It doesn't explode worldwide, but it doesn't have to. It starts spreading locally. Group chats, neighborhood Facebook groups, TikTok, Instagram reels, people recognize the parking lot. A few even recognize the officer. And within a few days, the video makes it exactly where it needs to go next. To the department. So here's where everything comes back around. Once the video hits the department, it doesn't just quietly sit in someone's inbox. Internal Affairs pulls everything: Tiana's clip, Herrera's body cam, radio logs, and the store's parking lot cameras. They line it all up on a timeline. What they see is simple. Miguel and Tiana walk out with groceries. No incident inside the store. No calls about a crime. Crowley sits in his patrol SUV, runs their plate, then blocks them in. He demands ID because you want to run your mouth. He refuses a supervisor. Herrera arrives and clearly states, "We don't have any reasonable suspicion of a crime. There's no reason for a traffic stop. You're not required to identify yourself." There's no way to spin that into misunderstanding. They call Crowley in for an interview. He leans on all the standard phrases: officer safety, suspicious behavior, non-compliant driver. But every time he says something, they roll the footage back and compare it. There's no aggressive movement from Miguel, no threats, no crime reported. Just a guy asking, "For what? What did we do?" And a woman asking for a supervisor. And then Internal Affairs does something else. They pull his history, prior complaints, a couple of counseling sessions on file, a previous incident note about discourtesy and improper contact while off duty. So now it's not just one bad day, it's a pattern. The recommendation that comes out of IA isn't light. It's not retraining. It's not 3 days unpaid. They send it up the chain with one word at the top: termination. The chief reviews everything. The city attorney looks at it too, because they know if they keep this guy on, that video is going to be Exhibit A in every future complaint. A few weeks after the incident, the department drops a short public statement. No names, no apology, big enough to match what happened. Just a line saying that. An officer involved in an off-duty contact that did not meet department standards is no longer employed with the department. Inside the station, everyone knows exactly who they're talking about. For Crowley, that's the drop. Badge turned in. Gun turned in. Access cut off. He doesn't get walked out in handcuffs, but he does get walked out without a uniform, without a job, and with a video online that shows exactly why. His ego started that parking lot encounter. The camera finished it. After the dust settles, life doesn't magically go back to normal for Miguel and Tiana, but it does get quieter. A few days after the statement goes out, they each get a call from a detective in Internal Affairs, letting them know the investigation is officially closed and appropriate action has been taken. They already know what that means. The officer from the parking lot, gone. For Miguel, it's a weird mix. On one hand, he's relieved. So let's pull this all the way together. You've got a black couple just buying groceries. You've got an officer in full uniform in a real patrol car who decides that staring at their plate, blocking them in, and demanding ID because you want to run your mouth is somehow part of the job. And then you've got the quiet, simple sentence that blows the whole thing up. As far as I know, we don't have any reasonable suspicion of a crime. You're not required to identify yourself. That's the part I really want you to sit with. Because Miguel didn't do anything special, he didn't scream, he didn't swing, he didn't try to be a lawyer. He just asked the most basic questions. For what? What did we do? What crime are you saying happened? Can we get a supervisor? And when that failed, the camera did the rest. Here's the reality. Some people put that badge on and think it's a free pass to act on their feelings instead of the law. And some people put that same badge on and actually follow the law, like Herrera did, right there in that parking lot. So the lesson here isn't that cameras magically fix everything. They don't. But they do something important. They stop people like Crowley from hiding what they really did behind a report and some vague phrases. If Miguel and Tiana hadn't recorded, what do you think the story would have looked like on paper? Suspicious vehicle. Non-compliant driver. Refused to identify. Instead, we have the real version. And in the real version, the wrong person lost their job. If you want more breakdowns of real situations like this, everyday racism, power trips, and people actually getting held accountable, make sure you subscribe, hit the notifications, and stick around, because this stuff isn't rare. It's just finally getting caught on camera.
Hey, that's me. I'm the one who called. My Jeep was parked right here. It's gone.
You Jordan? Turn around for me. Let me see your hands.
Yeah, my name's Jordan Scott Jr. My Jeep got stolen. I just got off work, came down, and it wasn't here, so I called you.
Sure about that? Let me see some ID.
My wallet was in the Jeep. I got a picture of my license on my phone, though. That makes no sense.
So picture this. You're sitting in the back of a Miami squad car, hands cuffed behind your back, sweat sticking to the seat. There's a camera pointed straight at you, and an officer up front is already talking about charges and statements. And all you can keep saying is, I called you. I called you. Why would I call the police if I did it? That's where we're starting today. This is the story of Jordan Scott Jr., a black man in Miami who did what we're always told to do. Call 911 when something's wrong. His car got stolen. He followed the rules. He stayed where dispatch told him to stay. He waited for help. And somehow, the moment the help showed up, he stopped being a victim and became the suspect. Now, I want you to really lock in on that. Because the officers that pulled up on Jordan didn't see a worried car owner. They saw a ready-made hit-and-run driver. They had a wrecked Jeep somewhere nearby, a vague description, and a black man standing outside in a black neighborhood. That was enough. For them, Jordan's not some wild storybook character. He's a regular guy. Early 30s, works long shifts, needs his car to get to work every day. He's got a legal firearm, like a lot of people in Florida. He smokes a little weed sometimes, nothing dramatic, nothing special. On this day, all he wanted was a police report, maybe a tow truck, and a way to figure out how he's getting to work tomorrow. Instead, he ends up handcuffed in the back of a squad car, listening to officers tell him he matches the description of a hit-and-run driver nobody actually saw clearly. And yeah, that's where everything starts to go wrong. Before the handcuffs, before the back seat of the squad car, it's just Jordan walking out of his apartment in Miami after a long day, thinking about food and a shower. He hits the parking lot. The spot where his Jeep should be? Empty. No broken glass. No tow sticker. Just nothing. He stands there for a second, doing that little mental reset we all do, like, maybe I parked on the other side. He checks. Nothing. Checks again. Still nothing. That's when it clicks. The car is gone. So he does what you're supposed to do. He pulls out his phone and calls 911. He's not yelling, not slurring, not all over the place. He's clear. Yeah, my name is Jordan Scott Jr. My Jeep is gone. I parked it right here. I just got off work, came outside, and it's not here. I did not give anybody permission to take it. Dispatch asks the basic questions. Color of the car, plate number, when he last saw it. They tell him to stay put, stay visible, and wait for officers. And that's exactly what he does. Now here's the part they don't tell you in the brochure. While Jordan is waiting like a good citizen, there's already another call-out. A Jeep crashed a few blocks away, hit another car, driver ran off on foot. Witnesses give the classic lazy description. Black male, dark clothes, maybe like 5'8", medium build, no face ID, no name, nothing solid. So when officers Daniels and Jay Collins roll up, they're not just thinking, car theft report. They're thinking, maybe this is our hit-and-run guy. They pull up, lights on. Jordan steps forward a little, phone in his hand, trying to wave them down. Hey, that's me. I'm the one who called. Daniels is already sizing him up. Eyes go from his face to his hoodie to his shoes. You Jordan? Yeah, my car. Turn around for me. Let me see your hands. No, good evening. No, tell me what happened first. We're already at command voice. Jordan's confused, but he does it. Hands up, palms out. My Jeep got stolen, man. I just got off work, came down, and it was gone. I called you guys. Jay Collins asks, almost like a script. What were you wearing when you were driving earlier today? Jordan answers, driving? I wasn't. I've been at work. You sure about that? Jay Collins asks. And right there in that little, you sure about that? You feel it. They're not treating him like someone who lost their car. They're treating him like he's already lying. Daniels asks for ID. Jordan reaches slowly, tells him where his wallet usually is. My wallet was in the Jeep. I got a picture of my license on my phone, though. So your Jeep is gone and your wallet is gone, Daniel says, like he just cracked a case. Convenient. Let that sink in. The man's car is stolen, and somehow that's suspicious. Jordan pulls up the photo of his license. They look at the name, look at him, then look at each other. Daniels goes, "You know there was a hit and run with a Jeep that matches this description a few blocks away, right?" Jordan answers, "Yeah, that's why I called. Someone took my car. How else would it get there?" "You match the description of the driver," Daniel says. Now remember, nobody actually saw the driver's face. The clothing doesn't quite match. The height's off. But all Daniels needs is blackmail and Jeep, and he's locked in. Jordan tries one more time. "Bro, why would I call you if I crashed my own car and ran? That makes no sense." Daniels doesn't even answer that. He just moves to the next step. "For my safety and yours, I'm going to detain you while we figure this out. Turn around, hands behind your back." And look, this is the move. They say detain, not arrest, like it's no big deal. But the cuffs feel the same. They pat him down, no weapon on him, nothing in his pockets but keys to his apartment and his phone. Then Jay Collins goes, "I smell marijuana," which of course is the magic phrase. That smell suddenly authorizes a lot of things they wanted to do anyway. They start looking around the area where his car used to be. There are shining lights opening his backpack he set by the stairs when he came down. Jordan protests, "Yo, that's my bag. I didn't say you could go through that." "Relax," Jay Collins says. "If you got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to worry about." Inside, they find a small bag of weed and a locked case with his firearm. Legal gun, something he bought after a previous break-in. Paperwork, usually kept in his wallet. He tries to explain, "The gun is mine. It's legal. The permit's in my wallet, which was in the Jeep." "We'll sort that out at the station," Daniel says. "Right now, you're being detained on suspicion of leaving the scene of an accident and filing a false report." False report. For calling about his own stolen car. They guide him to the squad car, duck his head, sit him in the back. The officers don't care. They've already decided what story they're writing. So now Jordan is in the back of the squad car, cuffs on, still trying to process how reporting his stolen car turned into this. Officer Daniels is in the driver's seat typing on the laptop, and Officer Jay Collins is standing outside, door cracked, acting like this is just routine. Jordan Scott Jr. looks straight at Daniels through the cage and says, "Officer, my name is Jordan Scott Jr. I called 911 because my Jeep was stolen. I didn't crash anything. I didn't run from anything." Daniels doesn't look back. He just keeps typing and says, "Jordan, you're being detained because you match the description of a hit-and-run driver. We'll sort it out at the station." Jordan shakes his head and says, "You never saw the driver. You said that. So how do I match?" No answer. Just keyboard clicks. They drive him to the station. At booking, a different officer at the desk, Officer Green, reads the list off like it's a grocery order. You're being charged with leaving the scene of an accident, filing a false police report, possession of a firearm, and possession of marijuana. Jordan stares at him and says, "I called you. How is that a false report? My car really is gone." Officer Green shrugs and says, "You can argue that in court, sir." They take his shoelaces, his phone, his watch. He asks about his wallet again. Jordan says, "My wallet was in my Jeep. The officer said he saw it. Where is it?" Green flips through a property sheet and says, "No wallet logged here, just your keys and your phone." So, already, we've got a missing wallet and a list of charges built on a story that doesn't make sense. They put Jordan in a holding cell. It's just concrete, a bench, and time. A lot of time to replay everything in his head. He keeps going back to one line he said outside. "Why would I call the police if I did it?" And that's the crazy part. That question never gets an answer from any of the officers. Hours later, Jordan finally gets released, on bond and with court dates. It's dark outside now. He steps out of the station with a plastic property bag and no car. He gets home, exhausted, humiliated, and still technically facing criminal charges. Later, Jordan meets with a lawyer and goes over the basics. What he said on the call, what happened when officers showed up, what they claimed he did. The lawyer listens, looks at the timeline, and tells him straight, "Lawyer, you called before they even contacted you. That matters. Their story and your call don't match up. We're going to push back." Meanwhile, a shorter piece of the whole situation starts to leak into public view. Somebody shares that moment in the squad car where Jordan says, "Jordan, in the car, I called you. Why would I call the police if I did it?" That line hits hard because it's simple and it's true. It ends up on social media with a caption calling out how the victim got turned into the suspect. So now, while Jordan is trying to keep his life together and figure out how to fight this in court, strangers online are already debating what happened to him. The department might think it's just another case file, just another arrest. But at this point, it's already more than that. It's a story people are paying attention to. After a while, the case lands on a prosecutor's desk. They have to look at everything together. On one side, the story in the paperwork says, this guy crashed his Jeep, ran away, and then made up a fake stolen car story to cover it. On the other side, the timeline says something else. Jordan called 911 right after he noticed his car was gone. There's no clear ID tying him to the crash. The description they're leaning on is vague and doesn't fully match him. The extra gun and marijuana charges came from a search that started with a very shaky, "you match the description." For a prosecutor, that's a mess. And at some point, they do the calculation and decide it's not worth trying to push this in court. So the word comes down. All charges against Jordan are dropped. No trial, no conviction. On paper, the criminal case is over. But here's what dropping charges doesn't erase. The night he spent in custody. The stress on him and his family. The fact his name was attached to those charges at all. The feeling of knowing he called for help and got treated like a suspect because of who he is and where he lives. On the police side, with the clip circulating and people talking, the department can't completely ignore it. An internal unit starts reviewing the incident. Inside the department, officers involved might get pulled off the street for a while, sat down for interviews, told that policy reviews are underway. Publicly, a spokesperson offers the standard line. Police spokesperson, we're aware of the situation and we're conducting an internal review to determine whether all policies were followed. For Jordan, the decision to drop charges is a win, but it's not justice, because the real damage is bigger than one case file. He's now a man who did exactly what the system told him to do and found out how fast that system can turn on him. And that's why, instead of just being relieved and walking away, he decides with his civil rights lawyer to take it a step further and file a lawsuit. They're not just talking about a bad night. They're naming it: wrongful arrest, unlawful search, and false prosecution. And that's where the story shifts from, you're lucky your charges got dropped, to, no, you're going to answer for what you did. Once the charges are dropped, Jordan should feel free. But it doesn't really feel like that. He meets again with the civil rights attorney. This time, the tone is different. No more panic about the criminal case. Now it's about accountability. The attorney lays it out straight. Attorney, you called to report a stolen car. You were treated like a suspect, searched, arrested, and charged. That is not just a misunderstanding. That's wrongful arrest, unlawful search, and false prosecution. We can sue. Jordan doesn't jump at it for revenge. He's tired. He just doesn't want this to be normal. Jordan, I don't want this happening to somebody else who can't fight it. Let's do it. So they file the lawsuit. It names the city, the department, and the officers involved. It spells out in plain language. He was the victim of a stolen vehicle. He was misidentified and profiled. He was charged without real evidence. At the same time, Jordan slowly starts rebuilding his routine. He went from suspect on their report to plaintiff on his own. All right, let's step back from the details and look at what really happened here. A black man in Miami, Jordan Scott Jr., did exactly what the system tells you to do. His car was stolen. He called 911. He waited where they told him to wait. And because he was a black man in a black neighborhood, standing near the problem instead of running from it, he got flipped from victim to suspect in minutes. That's the core of this story. The officers didn't have a clear ID. They didn't have a solid description. What they did have was a crashed Jeep, a vague black male description, and a black man who was convenient to blame. So they built a case on that, stacked charges, wrote him up like a criminal, and if he didn't have a lawyer, if he didn't push back, if that one line didn't hit people online, why would I call the police if I did it? This could have easily ended as just another quiet guilty plea from somebody who didn't actually do what they were accused of. That's why this matters. Because there are a lot of Jordans out there who don't get the charges dropped, who don't get a civil rights attorney, who don't get a headline or a clip going around social media. So when people say, just cooperate, just do what they say, you'll be fine. This is the counterexample. Jordan cooperated. Jordan followed instructions. Jordan still got arrested. If you want more breakdowns of real situations like this, racism, abuse of power, and people actually fighting back through the system, hit subscribe, drop a comment, and stay tuned. We're not done talking about this.
Sir, I just picked up some money from Western Union.
We got a call about a man out here asking people for money. You've been bothering customers?
No, sir. I went in, picked up the money, and came back out. I'm not asking nobody for money. I can show you the receipt if you want.
Man, stop resisting.
All right, let me drop you straight into this one. Antonio Arnello Carter is standing outside a Walgreens in Valdosta, Georgia, talking to police with his hands visible. He's not yelling, he's not running, he's not reaching for anything. He's literally mid-sentence trying to explain himself. He says something like, "Sir, I just picked up some money from Western Union. I got my ID right." And before that sentence even lands, he feels hands grab him from behind. 1 second he's upright, trying to cooperate, trying to stay calm like everybody always tells you to do. The next second his face is bouncing off concrete. His wrist is twisted at an angle it should never be at. And all the air is punched straight out of his chest. All he really knows in that moment is pain, confusion, and a cop's weight pressing him into the pavement, like he's some violent suspect who just attacked someone. And here's the part that should already make you angry. A grown man, doing exactly what he's supposed to, just got slammed into the ground so hard, he ends up with a broken wrist. And he still doesn't even know what he's supposedly done wrong. Let that sink in. Now, let's rewind. Because Antonio didn't wake up that morning planning to get assaulted in a Walgreens parking lot. He's 46. He's got regular life problems like anybody else. Bills, family stuff, trying to keep up. On this day, he's just there to pick up some money through Western Union at Walgreens. That's it. No big plot, no scheme. He gets his money, steps outside, and he's minding his own business. Somewhere else in town, or even nearby, somebody calls the police about a man allegedly panhandling outside the same Walgreens. At pretty much the same time, there's also a notice out about another man who actually does have a warrant. So you've got two separate things going on. A complaint about somebody asking for money, and a completely different person with an active warrant. And then the officers roll up and see Antonio, middle-aged black man standing outside Walgreens, has cash on him because he literally just picked it up inside. They don't know him. They don't know why he's there, but they've got that call in their heads and that warrant in their system. Instead of starting with, okay, let's make sure we've got the right person, it's more like they see a black man in the general area and their brains just connect the dots however they want. Antonio, for his part, is trying to do what he's been taught his whole life. Don't escalate, don't argue, don't give them a reason. He's ready to explain, to answer questions, to show ID. He has no idea that one of these officers is about to skip right past, let's figure this out, and jump straight to take him down. And that's where the whole thing really starts. So we're back in that Walgreens parking lot. Two patrol cars pull in, slow but intentional. You know that we're already assuming something's wrong kind of energy? That's what they bring with them. They see Antonio. He's not bothering anyone. He's just standing there with the cash he picked up from Western Union, maybe checking his phone, maybe just waiting before he leaves. But he fits the easy narrative. Black man near the store has money in his hand. So they walk up like he's already suspicious. One officer goes, "Hey man, what are you doing out here?" Antonio turns, keeps his hands where they can see them. That's the first thing he thinks about. Show your hands, be calm. "I just picked up some money inside," he says. "Western Union. I got my ID if you need it." Now, that right there, that should have slowed everything down. He's not arguing. He's not refusing. He's not trying to walk away. He's offering ID before they even ask. That's cooperation. The officer doubles down. "We got a call about somebody out here asking people for money. You been out here bothering customers?" Antonio shakes his head. "No, sir. I went in, picked up the money, and came back out. I'm not asking anybody for nothing." Another officer hangs back a little, scanning him up and down. That's Officer Billy Keller. He's watching Antonio's hands, his pockets, his body language, like he's waiting for any excuse to decide this is a threat. The first officer asks, "Can I see that ID?" Antonio nods right away. He moves slow, like he's done this dance before. "It's in my wallet," he says. "Back pocket. I'm going to reach for it now, okay?" He literally narrates his own movement for them, again, doing everything that's supposed to keep this kind of situation from going bad. He gets the wallet, pulls out the ID, and hands it over. While they're looking at it, one of them starts asking more questions. "Where are you coming from today? You live around here?" Antonio tells them. Calm, straightforward, no raised voice, no sudden movements. Just a man answering questions because he's trying not to get hurt. They radio in his name, start checking him in the system. Somewhere in that process, they've already mentally tagged him as the guy from the call, or maybe even the guy with the warrant. They don't know that for sure yet, but they're acting like they do. And here's the wild part. Antonio's still trying to help them understand. He holds up part of the money he picked up. "This is from Western Union," he explains. "I can show you the receipt. I just walked out of there, man." He's literally offering proof. He's trying to make their job easier. And then it happens. While he's mid-sentence, somewhere between, "I can show you the receipt," and "I just walked out of there," Keller decides he's done listening. Keller steps in fast, comes up behind Antonio, and grabs him across the upper body. Antonio doesn't even have time to process it. 1 second he's talking, the next his arm is yanked, his balance is gone. Then he's slammed down. His body hits the pavement hard. His wrist gets caught under him at a bad angle when he tries to catch himself. And that's where the break happens. His shoulder takes part of the impact, too, and his face hits the ground. All of that in one move. He's stunned, hearing shouting over him. "Stop resisting. Put your hands behind your back." He's already on the ground, already pinned, and they're yelling commands he physically can't follow because one wrist is twisted up, and someone's full weight is on him. And this is where I want you to remember something. He showed them ID. He explained the money. He offered to provide the receipt. He kept his hands visible. He's literally doing everything they tell people to do during a stop, and still gets treated like a threat. While Keller's forcing his arm back to cuff him and grabs his broken wrist, the pain hits him all at once, and he cries out, telling them it hurts, telling them he's not resisting. They don't stop. The cuffs go on tight. His shoulders burning, his face is scraped, and now he's officially in custody without a single clear explanation of what he's supposed to have done. All of this over a panhandling call and a warrant that isn't even about him. And at this point in the story, nobody in that parking lot, not Antonio, not the officers, knows that in a minute they're going to realize they've got the wrong man. So now Antonio's on the ground, face down, cuffs digging into his already broken wrist, shoulder screaming, cheek burning from hitting the pavement. He's trying to pull in air and talk at the same time. "I'm not resisting. I'm not resisting," he manages to say. "It hurts, man. My wrist. You're hurting me." Keller has a knee pressed into his back, holding him down like Antonio just tried to fight his way out of a robbery. The other officers hovering close, watching, still in that mindset that this is their guy. And here's the thing. Nobody is telling Antonio why this is happening. People nearby stop what they're doing. Someone at a car, somebody walking into Walgreens, they pause and stare. No big crowd speech, no shouting match, just that quiet shock of watching a man who was calm 2 minutes ago, now being bent up on the concrete. Antonio keeps asking, "What did I do? What did I do?" No one answers him in a straight sentence. One of the officers finally throws out a vague line. "You know what you did? We got a call on you." Keller keeps holding him down while the first officer steps away for a second, looking at the ID again, listening to the radio. You can feel the energy shift just a little. That, "We're sure this is our guy," starts turning into, "Wait a second." Dispatch comes back over the radio with more details on the warrant. They confirm the name, they confirm the description, and that's when the problem starts to show. The officer squints at Antonio's ID, listens again, and you can almost see the realization hit. The information they're getting doesn't match the man they've got on the ground. He asks dispatch to repeat something. Then you get that half-mumbled, "Hold on," under his breath. Meanwhile, Antonio's still in pain, still pinned. "Man, I told you," he says, voice strained. "I just picked up money from Western Union. I ain't done nothing. Check the cameras. Ask the lady inside." He's trying to talk through the pain in his wrist. The first officer finally steps closer to Keller and leans down, low voice. "Hey, this might not be him," he says. Keller doesn't move right away. You can tell he does not want to hear that. "What do you mean?" he snaps back. "The warrant's for somebody else," the other officer says, a little louder this time. He glances at Antonio's ID. Name's not a match. Description's off. They're saying the guy might be somewhere else nearby. So let's pause here. They've taken a cooperative man, slammed him into the ground, injured his wrist, shoulder, and face, cuffed him. And now they're starting to realize they grabbed the wrong person. Antonio hears bits of this. "What you mean, might?" he says from the ground. "You got the wrong man. I told you that. I've been telling you that." There's this awkward silence. Nobody wants to say the words, "We messed up," but everyone feels it. The first officer finally says, "All right, let's get him up." Keller loosens his hold, but it's slow, like he still wants to prove a point. He hauls Antonio up by the arm that's already injured, making him wince hard. "Careful, man. My wrist is messed up," Antonio says. They stand him up on shaky legs. The officer with the ID looks him in the eye now, a lot calmer than a minute ago. "Look, you're not under arrest," he says. "We just had to check some things out." Not under arrest, that's what they're going with. Meanwhile, Antonio's literally standing there in cuffs, hurt, embarrassed, and being told this was just checking some things. He asks again, slower this time. "So why you slam me on the ground like that?" No real answer. Just another vague line. "We got a call, okay? We got a call. We had to make sure everything was safe." Safe for who? Because it definitely wasn't safe for the guy with the broken wrist. Finally, the cuffs come off. "You're good to go," the first officer says. "That's it? No paramedics? No. Do you need medical help? No. We're sorry, we made a mistake. Just, you're good to go." Like they didn't just slam him into the ground and hurt him over someone else's warrant and somebody else's complaint. Antonio looks at them, stunned. "So that's it?" he asks. "You just gonna do that and tell me to go?" One of them mutters, "If you got a problem, you can file a complaint with the city." And that's another classic line. They know most people are too tired, too scared, or too doubtful to even try. That line is not about helping. It's about ending the conversation. And that's where Antonio has to decide what to do next. Walk away and try to forget, or actually push back against a system that expects him to just accept this and move on. After a couple days, once the meds settle in and the shock wears off a little, Antonio starts feeling the second kind of pain, not just in his wrist and shoulder, but in his mind. He can't sleep right. His body tenses up every time he hears sirens or sees a patrol car drive by. Every time he has to use his injured hand and can't, he remembers exactly how he ended up like this. And that you can file a complaint with the city line keeps replaying in his head. He decides he's at least going to start with that complaint they mentioned. He contacts the city about what happened. He explains. He mentions his broken wrist, the ER visit, the pain he's still dealing with. The response he gets back is polite, cold, and vague. A form letter. Something along the lines of, "We take all complaints seriously. The incident will be reviewed internally." No acknowledgement that anything went wrong. They want it to sound like they're on it without saying they're on anything. Weeks go by. Nothing meaningful changes. No one from the department calls him to explain. No apology. No, "We're looking into this. Here's what we found." Just silence. And this is usually where the story dies for a lot of people. But Antonio decides to reach out to an attorney who handles police misconduct cases. They file suit against the city, the department, and the officers involved. The claims are serious. Excessive force, violation of Antonio's Fourth Amendment rights, unlawful seizure of his person, and basically treating a cooperative citizen like a violent suspect without cause. This is the part departments hate, because lawsuits mean discovery. Emails, reports, body cam footage, witness statements, all that has to come out. The longer this sits on the table, the more the city has to ask itself a big question. Do they really want this to go all the way through a public trial? Or do they want to write a check and quietly move on? Eventually, they make their choice. They decide to settle. The agreement lands $350,000 to Antonio. Now, let's be real about what that means. On paper, that's the city essentially saying, we would rather pay this man $350,000 than have a jury look at what we did to him. They don't say the words, "we were wrong," but money at that level is not a, "we did nothing and we're just being nice" number. It's them protecting themselves from a worse outcome. Along with that payout, there's another piece that comes out of this mess. The creation of a citizen review board to oversee complaints about police conduct. The city announces it as a step toward transparency, community trust, all the buzzwords. Basically, from now on, when people like Antonio say, "An officer hurt me and no one is listening," there's at least a civilian panel that's supposed to look into those complaints and not just bury them in a file cabinet at the station. That sounds good on paper. It's better than nothing. But it's also not the magic fix some officials act like it is. Because here's the detail a lot of people miss when they just skim headlines about a settlement and a new board. The officers who did this to Antonio, including the one who slammed him, stay on the force. They weren't fired. They weren't charged. They didn't lose their badges. They just got added to the list of reasons the city had to cut a $350,000 check and set up a review board. So, yeah, Antonio gets compensated. Yeah, there's a new layer of oversight. But the same men who decided a calm, cooperative black man was a fair target for a hard takedown over a complaint and a warrant that didn't match him, they're still out there wearing the uniform, carrying a gun and a badge. And that's the part the narrator in me can't shrug off. The system will hand out money. The system will form boards and committees and hold meetings. But will it really remove the people who keep making the same mistakes that somehow always land on the same kind of bodies? Antonio's case ends up being one of those situations where the city pays, the paperwork grows. The policies get a tweak, but the people who caused the damage keep their jobs. There is some accountability here, but it's not full accountability. It's the halfway version. A check and a committee, not a clean slate. Antonio's case shows how dangerous that mix of bias and power really is. Two different situations, a panhandling complaint and a totally separate warrant, get mentally glued together, and the person who pays the price is the black man standing closest to the story the cops already believe. And yeah, the city paid. $350,000 is not pocket change. They also created a citizen review board, which is better than nothing. It gives people a place to go when they're hurt or mistreated and tired of hearing, "We'll look into it," from the same department that caused the problem. But here's the part you can't ignore. The officers who did this to him, they're still on the job. So let's be honest. This isn't full justice. This is partial accountability. That gap is the problem. Accountability has to be more than a payout, while the same officers keep patrolling like nothing happened. Because if the only ones who truly feel the impact are the victims and the taxpayers, what incentive is there for anything to change at the ground level? So here's what I want you to take from this. If you see stories like this and think, that could never be me, understand that Antonio thought he was just running an errand. If you hear people downplay these incidents, he must have done something. Remember, he walked away with no charges and a six-figure settlement for a reason. And if you ever catch yourself thinking, nothing ever changes, remember at least this much did. A man refused to stay quiet. He got his injuries documented. He pushed the issue with a lawsuit. And now his name is permanently attached to a case that forced his city to pay up and add a layer of oversight it didn't have before. It's not enough, but it's not nothing. All right, I'm going to leave you with this. What does safety really mean if the people who are supposed to protect you can hurt you, admit it with money, and still show up tomorrow in the same uniform? And how many Antonios are out there who didn't have the paper trail, the lawyer, or the chance to fight back? If you want more breakdowns of real situations like this, no exaggeration, no fake drama, just the reality of how power, race, and routine encounters actually play out, make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell, and share this story. Because the only reason stories like Antonio's don't stay hidden is when people like you refuse to look away.
Okay, I'm recording for my safety. I'm in the parking lot at the plaza, and this woman is blocking my car.
Don't come near me! Stop threatening me!
You're blocking the exit.
Somebody help! She's trying to attack me!
Imani was trying to go home. Instead, she got pinned in by a stranger who decided she wasn't going anywhere. A white woman blocked her car, called the police like it was a weapon, and started performing fear for anyone watching. While Imani did the only smart thing, she made sure the truth was on record. Because here's the thing about moments like this. The person who stays calm doesn't always win in real time. The person with the better story does. And in that parking lot, somebody was already writing a story out loud. Now, before we rewind, comment where you're watching from, your city or state. And if you're into stories where accountability only happens because someone stayed level-headed and kept receipts, hit like and subscribe. These situations happen fast and the details matter. All right, let's back up. Imani Brooks wasn't a loud person. Early 30s, steady job, the kind of woman who handled business and kept moving. She didn't go looking for conflict, and she wasn't interested in proving herself to strangers in public. But she did have one rule she lived by. If something felt off, she documented it. Not because she was paranoid, because she'd seen how quick off could turn into official. That day started normal. A busy shopping plaza, midday traffic, people circling for spots like it was a competition. The lot had that constant hum, engines crawling, shopping carts rattling. Somebody always half stopped in the lane with their blinker on like that meant they owned the pavement. Imani ran in for a quick errand and came back out already thinking about her next stop. She wasn't distracted, though. She noticed details. She noticed who was rushing, who was impatient, who was cutting corners. And she noticed the white woman before anything even happened. because the woman's energy didn't match the moment. Not lost, not wandering, not looking for her car. Looking at Imani. At first it read like the usual parking lot attitude. The little stare that people do when they want you to feel like you're in their way. Imani didn't bite. She got into her car like any other person would, shut the door, and took a breath before pulling out. That should have been the end of it. But the woman made it something else. She stepped into the lane behind Imani's car, not crossing through, stopping there, like she was placing herself in the path on purpose. And then her SUV rolled into position 2, angled just enough to block the exit without fully ramming in. It was calculated. A move meant to trap, not crash. Imani paused, trying to process the logic. People honked over less. People screamed over less. But physically blocking someone from leaving? That wasn't just rude, that was a control. And control was the whole point. The woman didn't act embarrassed. She didn't wave it off like she'd made a mistake. She acted like she had authority, like she was doing something justified, and everybody else needed to accept it. Imani stayed inside the car. That choice mattered. She didn't give the woman a scene. She didn't give her closeness. She didn't give her a frame where the story could become, I felt threatened. Instead, Imani reached for her phone and started recording. Not dramatically, not for attention, like someone making a record because she could already see where this was headed. The woman started talking, loud enough for nearby people to hear. She framed herself as the one who needed help. She insisted police were on the way. She repeated that she needed them there immediately, like repeating it made her decision more legitimate. And then came the performance. The part that wasn't about facts. It was about roles. The woman kept presenting herself as afraid, even while she stayed planted behind Imani's car, even while she refused to move, even while she escalated the tension and drew an audience. That contradiction is what made Imani's stomach drop, because Imani knew how that script worked. If police arrived to a scene where a white woman was loudly claiming fear and a black woman was frustrated, the public often didn't ask who started it. They asked who looked like the problem. The story could become dangerous in seconds, especially if there wasn't proof. So Imani stayed calm on purpose. She didn't plead. She didn't insult. She didn't match the woman's volume. She described what was happening like it was going into evidence. She kept it simple. She was being blocked. She was trying to leave. She needed the woman to move her vehicle. And you could feel, even in the way the bystanders reacted, that something wasn't sitting right. People weren't rushing to help the woman who was claiming fear. They were watching the woman who was blocking a car, like she owned the exit. A guy with a cart slowed down and hovered. A couple near the storefront stopped and pretended to check their bags while they listened. Someone across the row lifted a phone, not to take a selfie, but to capture what looked like a situation that might flip. And in the middle of that parking lot, it started turning into a public record. The woman kept warning Imani about consequences without saying the word out loud. She kept acting like any movement towards her car would be an attack, even though she was the one holding the exit hostage. She kept setting the stage for what she planned to tell officers when they got there. Imani didn't let her have that stage uncontested. She kept her tone controlled and her wording precise. She treated it like a chess match. Every sentence was a piece moved carefully, so it couldn't be twisted later. Every calm moment was a shield. The woman didn't just block Imani in and stand there quietly. She worked the moment. She kept her voice loud enough to travel, the way people did when they wanted witnesses before they wanted facts. She made sure anyone walking past heard the same message on repeat. Police were coming, police needed to handle it. She wasn't moving until they arrived. And then she added the ingredient that always changed how strangers reacted. She started presenting herself as afraid. Not afraid in a private, believable way. Afraid in a public, performative way. The kind of fear that wasn't about safety, it was about positioning. The kind of fear that turned a person into the victim before anyone even knew what happened. Imani clocked it immediately. That's why she didn't yell back. She didn't trade insults. She didn't get out of the car and give the situation a physical frame. She stayed seated, window cracked just enough to be heard, phone up, and she kept describing the reality in plain language. Her exit was blocked. She was being prevented from leaving, and she was asking to go. It sounded boring on purpose. Boring is hard to twist. The blocker didn't like that. She tried a different tactic. Bait. She edged closer to Imani's driver's side window, acting like she wanted a face-to-face argument. She talked over Imani's words, tried to turn it into a back and forth. She kept looking around between sentences like she was checking to see who was watching and what they believed. Imani didn't step into it. She kept forcing the same simple question into the air. If the woman was truly scared, why was she the one trapping someone in a parking lot? Why was she still standing there instead of moving away? Why was the fear only showing up as soon as police were mentioned? That question did something. It made the performance wobble. Because suddenly, the woman had to hold two stories at the same time. She was terrified, but she was also the one choosing to stay, choose to block, choose to control. And the more Imani kept that contradiction on record, the more uncomfortable the crowd got. A guy loading groceries into a trunk slowed down and kept watching. A woman with earbuds took one out and didn't put it back. The student across the row, Zoe, quietly angled her phone and started filming from a distance without saying a word. She didn't want attention. She wanted proof. That second camera mattered more than anyone realized, because the blocker started testing boundaries. She warned Imani not to come near her SUV. She framed the SUV like it was sacred property, and framed Imani like she was already guilty of something she hadn't done. She made it clear that if Imani got out, if she took a step, if she moved wrong, she was ready to say it was an attack. It was preloaded, like she'd rehearsed the line. Imani didn't flinch. She answered the way somebody answered when they understood the real danger wasn't the parking lot. It was the police report. She told the woman in a flat, almost tired way that blocking someone's car and refusing to let them leave wasn't just rude. It was illegal. And when officers got there, the person who set this up was going to be the one in trouble. That's when the blocker's tone sharpened. She didn't back off. She didn't move her vehicle even a foot. Instead, she started threatening consequences again, without saying exactly what she meant. It was the same message over and over. Don't test me. Don't come close. Don't try anything. And right there, you could see the chess game. Imani was playing defense with facts and distance. The blocker was playing offense with implication. It wasn't even about Imani anymore. It was about control, about proving she could hold a stranger in place and make the system show up on her terms. A nearby employee, Mr. Patel, from one of the storefronts, finally walked over. Not aggressive, not confrontational, just cautious, like he didn't want to be the next target in somebody's story. He asked what was going on and looked from the SUV to Imani's car, then back to the woman. The blocker tried to pull him into her narrative, repeating that she was waiting for police and that she felt threatened. But Mr. Patel did what a lot of people do when they can see a situation with their own eyes. He didn't argue feelings. He pointed at reality. He asked why. If she was scared, she was standing there and keeping someone from leaving. He told her she needed to move her car and let the driver out, and the blocker didn't like hearing that from him, because it hit different when it wasn't the angry black woman saying it. Imani noticed that too. She didn't celebrate it, and she just kept filming, kept her voice steady, kept repeating the same request, kept building a clean timeline. She wanted to exit. The other driver refused. The crowd was now watching it happen. That's when the blocker tried her most dangerous move. She started acting like the recording itself was the problem. She told Imani to stop filming. She spoke about the phone like it was harassment, like evidence was aggression. But in 2025, in a parking lot full of strangers, that demand didn't land like she thought it would. It landed like guilt. Zoe's camera stayed up. Another person across the lane lifted theirs too. It wasn't a mob. It wasn't chaos. It was oversight. And the blocker felt it. So she got louder. She kept returning to the same script. Police were coming. She needed them now. She was afraid, while still refusing to move the SUV even an inch. The contradiction got sharper each time she repeated it. Imani's tone never changed. That was the flex. She stayed in the car. She stayed composed. She stayed factual. And when the blocker threw out another warning about what would happen if Imani got near the SUV, Imani delivered the line that made a few bystanders glance at each other like, yeah, she's right. Imani told her she was the one about to end up in jail. Not as a threat, as a prediction. Because at that point, it wasn't just Imani's word against hers. It was on camera, from more than one angle. And the parking lot had stopped being a private dispute. It had become a public record, waiting for officers to arrive and decide who they believed. When the police pulled into the plaza, the whole dynamic shifted, because now it wasn't just a parking lot standoff. It was a race to be believed first. The woman who'd blocked Imani in immediately tried to take control of the conversation. She positioned herself as the one needing help, leaned hard into the idea that she felt threatened, and talked with a kind of urgency that made strangers assume there had to be a reason. Imani didn't compete for drama. She stayed measured and kept everything anchored to one fact. She had been prevented from leaving. She explained it as a timeline, not an argument. How she tried to exit, how her path was blocked, how she asked repeatedly to be let go, and how the other woman refused, while insisting police were the solution. That difference mattered, because officers heard fear claims all the time. But they also recognized when someone was trying to steer the outcome before anyone looked at the actual scene. And this scene was simple if you weren't distracted. One car was trapped, one car was positioned to keep it that way, and a crowd had gathered because it didn't look normal. What the blocker didn't expect was that Imani wasn't alone in documenting it. Bystanders had been watching. At least one person had filmed from a second angle. A nearby employee had seen enough to speak up. The situation had witnesses who weren't invested in either person's ego, only in what they saw. So when the blocker tried to switch the focus to accusations and consequences, it didn't land the way it usually did. Too many people had already seen the setup. And the moment that really broke her momentum was when the recording became part of the conversation. Because once an officer asked to see what had been captured, the dispute stopped being about who sounded more convincing. It became about what actually happened. Imani's video showed the part that mattered most. She stayed contained. She tried to leave. She kept asking for space. And the other woman used her vehicle, and the threat of police, as leverage to keep control. It undercut the "I was terrified" act in the simplest way possible. It made the contradiction visible. After that, the officer's tone changed. Not dramatic, not emotional, just more specific, more procedural, more focused on the fact that blocking someone from leaving wasn't a normal disagreement. It was a choice. And with witnesses backing up what the video showed, the blocker's strategy started collapsing in real time. By the end of the interaction, Imani wasn't scrambling to defend herself anymore. She was just letting the record speak. The woman who came in expecting to run the situation with fear and authority was now stuck explaining why she created it in the first place. Once the officer had the basic picture, the standoff stopped being a "he said, she said" situation and turned into a paperwork situation. The kind that doesn't care about performance. The first thing that changed was control. The officer directed the blocker to move her vehicle and clear the exit, not as a suggestion, as an instruction. And when she hesitated, still trying to hold on to that last bit of power, the officer's tone got sharper, the way it did when someone kept resisting a simple, lawful order in public. Imani stayed put until it was handled. She didn't peel off the second she had space, because she understood what leaving too quickly could look like. She did the opposite of what the blocker expected. She stayed calm and stayed available, like someone who had nothing to hide. Then came the part that mattered more than the argument ever did. statements. The officer separated people and started collecting names and quick summaries. A store employee confirmed what he saw. A bystander confirmed they filmed from a different angle. The crowd that had formed wasn't a cheering section. It was a record. And that's what changed the outcome. Because now the blocker couldn't rely on tone and tears alone. She had to match the timeline. And she couldn't. She tried to pivot. She tried to make it about feeling unsafe. She tried to make the phone recording sound like provocation. She tried to act like the whole thing was an accident or a misunderstanding. But there's a problem with using a car as a weapon and then calling it fear. Vehicles don't accidentally trap someone at that angle, and witnesses don't accidentally see you refuse to move for several minutes. The officer's questions narrowed. They got less emotional and more mechanical. Why she placed her SUV there. Why she didn't simply let the other driver leave. Why she insisted on police while also claiming she was afraid. And why she escalated it in front of a crowd. And when the blocker's answers kept slipping into vague accusations instead of facts, the officer treated it like what it was. Disorderly behavior that created a public disturbance, plus a deliberate act that restricted another person's movement. That's when consequences started showing up. Not a dramatic movie arrest scene, not a big speech, just real-world accountability. Warnings turning into citations, refusal turning into documentation, a situation being recorded in a way that followed the blocker after the parking lot. Imani walked away from that moment with something most people never get in situations like this. Confirmation on the record that she was the one who tried to leave, not the one who tried to control. She didn't win because she shouted louder. She won because she stayed disciplined long enough for the truth to get captured by more than one camera. And the blocker, she left without the victory she came for. She didn't get to keep Imani trapped. She didn't get a clean story where she was the hero. And now she had an officer, witnesses, and multiple videos attached to her name. In other words, the parking lot ended, but the accountability didn't. Within hours, the video was everywhere. It didn't need captions to make sense. People could see the setup. One person trying to leave, one person using a car, and a police call to control the moment. And once the clip hit social media, the comments all circled the same point. This wasn't fear, it was strategy. Commentators broke it down like a pattern, weaponizing panic, using police as leverage, and trying to flip the story the second things didn't go her way. The phrase, classic Karen, came up fast. But the real takeaway was sharper than a label. If Imani hadn't recorded, the story could have gone the other way. And that's what made it stick. Not the drama. The reminder that cameras are sometimes the only reason the truth survives the first version of events. After the parking lot cleared, the real consequences didn't happen in the moment. They happened in the follow-up. Because once multiple videos existed, the blocker couldn't quietly re-explain what happened later. The timeline was locked. The witnesses were real. And the claim of fear didn't match the behavior that started everything. Using a vehicle to restrict someone's movement and refusing to let them leave. In the days that followed, what started as a public standoff turned into official steps. Reports got reviewed with footage attached. The store management got involved because the incident happened on their property and drew a crowd. And the blocker, who had tried to turn the police into a pressure tactic, ended up dealing with the kind of accountability that doesn't disappear when the cameras stop. Citations, restrictions from the plaza, and the possibility of further legal trouble if she doubled down with false claims. Imani, on the other hand, walked away with something most people don't get after a situation like that. Validation on record. Not just she said, but proof that she stayed controlled and tried to leave while someone else escalated. And that changed her afterward. Not in some dramatic movie way, just in the quiet way real people change when they realize something important. You can be calm, you can be polite, and someone can still try to turn you into a threat if it benefits them. The answer isn't to become louder. The answer is to become prepared. That's the lesson here. Power doesn't always look like shouting. Sometimes power looks like blocking a car, calling the police, and performing fear to make the system arrive, already leaning your way. And accountability doesn't always look like instant justice. Sometimes accountability looks like a phone held steady, a timeline stated clearly, witnesses who don't look away, and a record that makes it impossible for a lie to become the official version. So let me ask you, what would you have done if you were Imani? Would you have stayed in the car and recorded? Or would you have gotten out and risked giving someone the moment they wanted? And have you ever seen somebody try to use fear like a weapon in public? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share this with someone who needs the reminder, and subscribe for more story times like this. Because the next situation could happen to anyone, and the receipts are what protect you.